Good afternoon and welcome back. We hope you enjoyed your lunch. So please take your seats. Our next panel will focus on how attractive the non-profit and public sectors think they are to young leaders, with the title, General and Sectoral Leaders, Bridging the Gap. I would like to ask our moderator and speakers to join us on stage. Let me introduce the moderator, Dr. János Setényi, Director of MCC Learning Institute.
And now let me introduce the speakers of the panel, Dr. Zoltán Szalai, Director General of MCC, Gladden Papin, President of the Hungarian Institute of International Affairs, and Dr. István Stumpf, Professor, Chairman of the Board of Trustees, Tokaj-Hegyalja University.
Thank you very much. So let's start the discussion. The introductory sentence was about leadership, leaders, sectoral and non-sectoral talent of leadership. Let's start with the notion of leader. Obviously, when we are talking about leaders, we don't mean people who were appointed to direct and manage organizations, who have a certificate of paper that I am a leader, this is signed and I am appointed. We are rather talking about people who are mobilizing, motivating, and lead other people. What is your personal definition of the word leader? Let's start with that. We don't have to go like the Chinese say, ibu, ibu, so not everybody should speak, but those who have appetite for a reaction, please go ahead. So what is your personal concept? Who is a leader?
You are looking at me, so basically, I think, and I follow the principle, and I tell it always to our students as well here at MCC, that I think you can be a leader everywhere. So this principle, lead where you are, I think is very important. If you think yourself as a leader who is responsible for something, even if you are the last stone in the system, then it is helping you. This mentality, to build up this mentality, helps you a lot. So basically, my description for a leader would be that everybody can be a leader if you act like this, if you feel responsibility, and if you live your life, even if you are not a leader, as to have the possibility to be a future leader, and even you find your own responsibilities in the system, even if you are just starting your career, that can give you this passion for a future leader.
I just have a couple of thoughts based on the difference between the contemporary approach to leadership that you see maybe in the Silicon Valley and the classical approach to leadership. A few years ago, the Silicon Valley word was move fast and break things. That was one of the slogans. And the idea of disruption and disruptive innovation was another idea. And there's something that's important about both of those, but maybe they're kind of rare or unusual forms of leadership. I mean, sometimes a rare businessman comes along with a good idea that really does change everything. But if leadership is to be something that everyone can share in, as Oli was saying, then we have to have a slightly different concept. And the ancient concept that comes from Aristotle is basically that the natural tendency of things is to fall apart. The world is full of good institutions and important things, and the natural tendency of them is to fall apart. I guess it's the second law of thermodynamics as well, that order decreases and chaos increases. And that means we have to be, not simply conserving and preserving institutions exactly the way they've always been, but we have to figure out how to keep them alive and innovate and change them so that they can continue in the future. And that's something that everyone can play a role in, because it's a mentality. And if we just take the idea that you're only a leader if you're making a gigantic change, then I think most people will miss out on the ways they can actually help to improve things.
The leader is who is able to who has a clear vision about the future, and who is able to attract the followers, and who could define the goals, and could attract those people who has common goals together, and also able to motivate them, and to create some kind of those kind of vision with able to reach. And he is able. It's very different when we are talking about, especially my experiences in the special college movement. Among the youngsters, how could be the leaders is very important. What is the legitimacy among the students and among those kind of circles who are the member of the peer groups? And totally different things when you are the member of the government and you have to lead the government, and every weeks made several decisions, and the decision could show some kind of future. And if you are not able to draw that kind of future, you are not able to attract those kind of people who are a member of the group behind you.
Thank you. Wonderful, fascinating differences, but showing towards the same direction. Zoltán was mentioning responsibility 4 times in his reaction. That's very interesting. So the responsible leader. Gladden was talking about avoiding chaos and keeping things together instead of disruption now. It's very interesting. And clear vision, sharing vision, and motivating people along this vision. Before going into this sectoral type of leadership talent, like business, art, politics, civil society, and so on, let's take a look at first to the non-sectoral sources of talent, which is this generic. Do we have such a thing like a talented leader, a born talented leader who can be a very talented and successful leader in any sectoral field, a generic set of leadership tools or talent or energy potential? Have you ever seen people who are like born leaders?
I mean, education and career development is a process which begins from the personality that someone has and also shapes it. So I think people tend to have a kind of temperament or a set of character traits, and people are more. You can see it even in children. They're more some are more social and immediately befriending people. You see the children on the football team, taking charge, and those who just want to sit in the background. And I think the leaders tend to come from those who are more extroverted. But again, these I think are not absolutely fixed from birth. But people have some tendencies and some natural tendencies toward leadership that can be developed along a particular path. I think today one of the dangers, though, is that people somehow have an idea that they should kind of skip the natural sequence of things. Mm-hmm. That immediately from being a teenager or something, you can have the grandest possible vision and start a completely new company or a completely new idea and completely change everything. And I think it's a good motivating idea, but the reality is that we have temperament and inclination, and it's developed through a certain set of activities and education and the opportunities that come in front of you. And eventually, out of that comes different types of leaders in different sectors.
So humility, step-by-step development. István, you have spent a lot of time with born leaders.
Right, that's the reason why I would like to mention 3 different examples. The first is Viktor Orban, who really born leaders, and his socialization in the universities and after the movements of the Fidesz and later on in the government and the international and national politics, very much showing that how important to gain as much information as possible, and this is the continuing education. If you would like to keep your leadership capability, probably you have to be open and learn a lot. It doesn't matter what kind of position you are sitting. Another example, in my village, the mayor, who is a great guy, and he is able to attract the people and organizing some kind of public work every day, and also to organizing the very different kind of meetings, and nobody questioning him that he is the leader of the small community, 600 people living there. And the third one, she is my third daughter, Kate. She is the leader of one of the civic organization, the Greenfield civic organization, try to help the secondary schooler to make a decision about the future, and he organized the network of this kind of people, the Connect organization, how to connect different kind of people, and he became the very original leaders, and also he was the leader of the synchronized swimming group when she spent most of her life that time under the water.
Let's go back just for a moment to this village leader. That's very interesting. Apart from your daughter and Viktor Orban, the village leader, somebody who is moving things without pushing, having authority without being a strong guy. What is he is a man. Okay, what is his secret? What is the technique, the way, the soft way? He's still exercising authority in the good sense.
The personal sample. He is going to show what should do for the public. So he regularly the close relationship, the open-minded thinking, and very much try to organize not just those people who have a clear professional interest to do this or that, but serving the community. And he is able to attract that kind of mission. He is the leader, and he is serving the community. And if you would like to improve the quality of the life in the small community, you have to participate to do several things which, if you are going to be alone, you wouldn't do that. Yes.
Zoltán?
It's just very interesting that another word that you can hear very frequently, even in these two panelists' sayings, is people. And I think that's the most important, because what leaders do, they manage people. It's everything is about people management. Can you learn it, or you have to born for it? I think there are two things which are very important for people management, which I would say is 70% of leadership anywhere, probably even more. The first is that you can read people, you can understand people, how they want to live, what they want to achieve, what is important for them, what is not important for them. If you can read that, if you can understand it, that's already a half success. The second one is that how István said, it's this village guy is a very open mind, very open and talking to them. If he can express his opinion, if he can tell, okay, now I understand the people, I know what they want and what they don't want, and how I can interact with them. These are the two things probably which on the people management side, which is probably 70% of leadership, very, very important. And if you think about this, of course you need skills, and you need a special temperament for this, special attitude. attitude towards this. But on the other hand, these are things you can learn. It's a thing you can learn how to talk, how to speak, how to start a conversation, how to start a smooth conversation, how to make a more rough conversation, and so on and so on. And how to understand people, how to observe people and to see in their eyes and understand what is important for them. So these things are also to learn. And what I often experience with our students, if you just tell small things, small tricks, let's say 5 things or 10 things that you have to really observe and which should be very important in your professional career, these small things can make really big changes, which are helping someone to understand the other, someone to how to start a conversation or how to listen to someone. I often tell to the students, and it's not my idea, it's written in several books, let others speak first. And it's a small trick, but it helps a lot. They already tell their opinion, they already discuss a lot of problems until you can talk, and they already solve a lot of problems that you don't have to solve if you let them talk. So these are such small tricks which can be learned, and for this the most important is example, and good examples of leaders, to see them and to meet for young individuals can be very important.
That's very interesting. So you, as the other 2 colleagues, are emphasizing the importance of development and learning. We have a leadership academy here in MCC. That's a key institution. For those who are not close to MCC in this conference audience. But what is your proportion between the personal characteristics and the learning and development component of this leadership talent? Like, as far as I understood you, Zoltán, it's like something like 50-50 roughly, or?
I would say if there is a basement, there are basics that are important as a person for you. So if you hate to communicate, it's very difficult to change it. Or if you, I have 2 sons. The one is much more interested in things. So he is very much interested in a screwdriver, and so the other one is much more interested in people. Of course, if you want to be a future leader, it's much better to be interested in people than in things. But if there are basics, a basic level of several skills and several attitudes, then to learn it, I think, even to a highest level, is possible.
Thank you. In the meantime, one technical note is that you can start to use your Slido because we will provide you like 20 minutes at the end of the discussion for your own personal questions. We will reflect and react to your questions too. Now let's go one step further, which is about sectoral skills, leadership skills. István had a wonderful example. The daughter is in civil society business, and we had a top-level politician and the local mayor in public administration, also community leadership. How different are the sectoral skills of leadership? You can have one example where you are very familiar in one area. We don't have to compare all of them. Do you think a divide, or on the opposite, if we have a parachuted very good leader from art or business, they can be quite okay in politics, in public administration, in other areas as well?
I think if we are talking about the politics, we are talking about the structures of the government and also the institutions. These are much more limited room for maneuvering to attract the people as a leader. Because there are several regulations, there are customs, there are traditions, and there are very hard push to make a decision as soon as possible. And you have to implement that kind of things. And probably in the politics, of course, there is the profit, there is the profit or voters maximization. In the business, there is the profit maximization. It's two different approach, and I think if you are just using this kind of things as an evaluation channel, it's much more easier to say that he is a good leader or not. But if you are talking about the public life, which is much more broader than just focusing on the government activities, probably you have to think about the public good and also the value-oriented political behavior, which could be the part of the good leader and the leadership capability.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'll make a comment about America for a moment. I mean, in America, public service unfortunately doesn't have has never had the same high standing, I think, as it has in Europe and in the UK. Even in the 19th century, the visitors to the United States observed this, and visitors from Britain would say, we see that all the most high talent in the U.S. is going into business. There's no respect for governmental service, basically. That doesn't mean that no talented people go into government, but the business of America is business. So I think, and this has created a kind of problem, though, because the idea of the American dream is so big in the mind that every child is sort of raised to think that they can create the next Facebook or the next Netflix or Google or something like that, and the middle area where reality actually happens and where real leadership is necessary in all sorts of organizations, I think sometimes disappears a little bit. But certainly, I think that there are standard traits and features that are common to all sorts of leadership. But this, for me, it's somehow a combination of trying to develop a motivating goal that's somehow realistic, like, what would you really want to do, or, based on the path that you're on now, what are the possibilities that could emerge. It also, I think, requires a lot of discipline on a daily basis. I mean, we see the results that great leaders produce, but unless we're reading biographies, unless we know them, unless we have some familiarity with them, we might not realize that on a day-to-day basis, why did they sense this great opportunity? Well, it wasn't a magic trick. They were, paying attention every single day. They were doing the patient and difficult work of meeting people, talking to people, identifying opportunity, and things like that. So I think that there's a lot of mundane work that's involved in leadership, and sometimes, particularly in America, I think, we so much romanticize the gigantic transformation. That the reality of really important institutional leadership in all sorts of different sectors shouldn't be forgotten.
I think it's, when we are talking about different basically branches or different parts of life, the business life is very easy, because what is the measure of success in business? It's money. If you generate a lot of profit, then you are successful. Even if you have a very successful company that is even on break-even, you are not seen as successful. Even if you have a fantastic product which changes the life of a lot of people, then you are not successful. So in business, it's quite easy. In other fields, if you talk about arts or if you talk about public service, it's difficult, because it's not so easy to measure how successful you are. I would go one layer deeper. I think when we say, okay, a company is successful because if it generates profit, and what is the goal of the company? To generate profit. But I think if we go to people's level and on people's management level, the goal of every organization is if a person can find his place in life, in his professional life, in his private life. So if you can fulfill your life in your job, If you you spend most of your time basically with working, or a lot of people spend most of their times with working. If you are satisfied there, if you find the circumstances, the people, the proper place, the goal, and all these attitudes together, and all these features together in a workplace, then this company will be successful, and probably that's the layer behind. And I think leaders are always motivated to find the proper workplace for the proper job. You know probably the old myth, the old Roman Greek myth of Leto, the wolf. And what was his destiny? To find the place where Leto, the wolf, can fulfill his life, where he can have a family and have basically small wolves and so on and so on. So that's an old myth of mankind, to find your place in the world. And I think that is the layer beyond the success of profit, is to create an organization where the most people can fulfill their life and can find their proper place to live and to have a happy life.
That's a very interesting thing. I would add to this that in business life, this measurability and the very clear-cut key performance indicators often linked to profit and financial results is also a big burden on people, because for adult people, it's not easy to take these things seriously for a long time. For short term, yes, you get fantastic rewards and bonuses and everything, but it leads to burnout very soon.
But if these people are happy, you can set goals, and the one goal is create profit. And if a happy organization with proper people on their proper place, then they will create profit. If the goal is that we should have very talented students as much as possible, and the students should be as successful and happy as possible, then that is the goal for the organization. If the goal is that, let's say, win the next elections in the US, and you create a good bunch of people to that, then that will be your goal with this formation. So I think the basement or the cornerstone for success is this setup, or to create this setup within your people.
Can these sectoral people talk with each other? Do they understand each other? That's a key question when we are talking about social elites and future leaders. Some of our students will go to culture, some will be academic people, some others will be business leaders or public administration leaders sooner or later, diplomats, foreign affairs leaders, but they still have to have the common ground and to talk with each other and understand each other. Is it on the goal or value level, or is it
necessity? I think without this kind of cooperation and communication, nobody able to stay the leadership position, because the world is globalized world. And yes, there was the traditional idea that there are several sectors of the society where the science, politics, business, and other that has a very special recruitment organization and also rules and guidelines. But the world became much more complex than it was before, and very uncertain future. And if you would like to find the right way in the uncertain future, you have to get as much information as possible, but not just your own field. And that's the reason why it's required much more open-minded thinking and much more cooperation between the different players who are key person in the different sectors.
Very good. My last question in this discussion is coming from a student who asked the question that at the moment, how attractive is Hungarian public administration, including politics as well, for young talents, future leaders? Gladden is the middle of this reorganization of the Hungarian Institute for Foreign Affairs, so you might have a view as well about these issues. You don't have to be very polite.
Well, clearly it's something that's extremely important. I mean, I was just, as you were asking the question, I was, again, thinking about the differences that I've observed between Hungary and the United States in my mind. And in the United States, the different sectors occupy different cities. You know, we have, like, Boston is kind of the educational center, and New York is the business center, and California is like a more creative style of entrepreneurship, and in Washington they all sort of intersect, but in Budapest they all sort of intersect as well. So I was just thinking that somehow it's important for, you know, whatever path people are on to understand the similarities and differences and characteristics of the different fields. Otherwise, you can develop a kind of toxic cynicism, like, you know, Silicon Valley people think that nothing happens in government, and, you know, governmental people think that, I'm again talking about the U.S., that Silicon Valley and, you know, business people are full of hot air or whatever. I don't know. There are all these sort of stereotypes. So I think. Again, the situation in the United States is a little bit different because of the, you know, strong pull of the top talent to go into finance and business and so on and so forth. So I think that's something that's a little bit different here. I mean, I see, you know, particularly in the environment that MCC has created, a strong you know, link between excellence and meritocracy and public service, and that's something that I think unfortunately has started to be missing in the United States. But if people feel that that by developing their talents there is a path to some kind of success, as Oli said, that they could find their place in public administration or public service, then people will choose it. If people feel that they will be thwarted, that there's no stability, that there's that everything is irrational, that, you know, people are promoted for no reason, then they go somewhere else. So I see that at least my feeling is that things are moving on the right track, but can always be improved too.
I'm sorry for bringing always examples from MCC, but that's my job. And if I look, let's say, on the MCC maps where we have centers, we have now 27 centers. So, and not just in Hungary, but in the surrounding countries. There are differences between, let's say, a student in Budapest or a student in Cluj-Napoca, Kolozsvár in Transylvania, Romania. It's in Budapest, people are much more interested in topics like, let's say, future of health service, or future of education, or people are very much interested how to organize a good functioning state. If we go to, I give you an example. When we started, it was 8-9 years ago in Kolozsvár, in Cluj. It was very interesting because we had, I can't remember anymore from where, a very good international professor who always had very high grades, and his topic was such policy things. And we imported it to Cluj, to Kolozsvár, and then there was, in Budapest, it was a full A, and there was a B, C, something. And I didn't understand, why is this? Because the same person, I attended the course, it was fantastic, but what is going on? And then we realized that, let's say, in Kolozsvár, the people are much more interested how I can create my own business, how I can be successful as an entrepreneur, how I can communicate good and make good marketing for my product, whatever it is. So there are big differences. And my answer to this question, that's why I think public sector and to be part of these big policy issues in Budapest, it's very attractive for students, as far as I can see, or for a large number of students, it's very attractive to go into this, to understand how it works, to think about this, and to fulfill such policies.
Yeah, I think it's the time changed very much the last 40 years. During the system changing, I think the young generation very much it was very much eager to change the world, the whole world, because they fighting for freedom, and they would like to create some kind of new society, and they very much committed to do something, and they socialized in the civil society, gaining some kind of experience how to manage the small community, and so it was the pre-socialization of this generation was very important. But after that, and also the European Union integration period, when that kind of public servant tried to learn what's going on in Europe and how could the Hungarian public administration system fit for the European requirement. Right now, it's totally different, especially after so many two-thirds majority winning of the ruling party and being the member of the public administration, not so attractive because you have the creativity and creating some kind of own identity is the huge challenge of those leaders who are managing the public administration right now. But it's a totally different situation because we are living in the digital society where the different kind of information is coming in the different sources, and you have to be prepared to analyze this kind of information and creating some kind of new synergy among that.
Thank you.
Sorry, I would add probably one thing to my last statement is that it's not a difference that, let's say, the students in Budapest are better because they want to attend more in these politics things, and or the Kolozsvár Cluj people are better because they want to be more entrepreneurial. It's basically the framework where they live. In Budapest, it's much easier to be part, to change the society, to be part of this change if you have ideas. If you are, let's say, and how are our students, they are basically ethnic Hungarians, so the Hungarian minority in Transylvania. For you, it's very difficult to imagine that you go to Bucharest and you become part of the Bucharest elite and you start to change things. It's much easier to create your own business there and to make an impact that way. Vice versa in Budapest, if you are here, you are part of this Budapest vibe. It's much easier to be, if you want to be part of that kind of public service where you can have an impact on the public life.
We still have 11 minutes, a little bit more, and wonderful questions from the audience. There are 3 questions about women, female leaders. Are they different? And if they are different to some extent, what kind of positive impact or extra input they represent in this leadership culture? I'm asking 3 men.
I think that kind of leadership creating much more emotional environment for the whole institutions and also the leadership capability. I realized that Hungarian Business Leaders Forum has a priority to organize those kind of events when the ladies who is sitting in the key position trying to send those kind of message that the business and the politics, this is a much more lovable area than it was before, not so strict. And also the communication is different, and probably they are able to create some kind of small family around the institution and around those kind of issues which they are managing. So that's, I think, it's much more not so hard, much more smoother and easier to participate that kind of thing. That's my personal experience.
Yeah. Another question. Tell me one mistakes you have done in your career as a leader. Small or bigger, doesn't matter. Just one mistakes, because leaders sometimes make little mistakes as well.
It's your turn, Gladden.
Moving to Hungary, was that It was a fatal mistake. It was a fatal mistake.
I think the same.
Yeah. No, that's it. That's my answer. No. So, yeah, I think it's important to try to be self-correcting and to examine one's practices regularly and to try to change them. In particular, to see if one. I mean, again, for me, I think that you have to combine doing your job and also looking for opportunity. So this idea of opportunity is something where you can make a mistake by missing an opportunity. You can make a mistake by following the wrong one as well. But I think leadership requires some sort of willingness to take a risk, and sometimes it leads to success, and other times it can put you off course for a bit. But that's something that's important to keep in mind.
During the 2002 election, there was a general perception that the government achievement was quite good because the public opinion polls showing the highest score for that kind of achievement. But we're not calculating that the people not just thinking about the government achievement, but also how they are seeing the politicians and what is the everyday life and also the campaign why so important in the door-to-door campaign, and that was the reader we get some kind of satisfaction, that kind of achievement, and that's caused the failure of the 2002 election.
Mm-hmm. We have 2 or 3 questions about introverts. I'm an introvert. Can I be a leader? Like 3 questions like that. So being introvert, but still a desire to lead people, that's seemingly a strong paradox here in the questions.
Yeah, I think the answer is yes, and I don't know if this, since I used the term extrovert earlier, maybe this was a reply or question that was following on my statement. But I mean, I think that people have combination, that temperament is a combination of different inclinations. And looking at my own life, I mean, I think I was definitely an introvert when I was a teenager. And even through most of university, and I didn't contribute in classes. I didn't raise my hand. I just kind of quietly, sat at the back and took notes. But then I chose to become a teacher. Wow, I mean, immediately that changes your personality, and so I think that people have these maybe dominant and recessive parts of their personality. I still have an introverted part of my personality. I like to read a book and think quietly and step away sometimes. But I think that the balance can change, and that the circumstances can change the balance within you. So if you have a goal and you understand your personality, then you can choose some activities and some sequences to change it and to develop your personality in the way that you want. So maybe there are some eventual limits or some outside limits on that process, but I think personalities are quite flexible, particularly in your teenage years and the 20s. A lot can change during that time. So definitely an introverted person can become a leader.
But I think if you fundamentally introvert personality, you have no chance to be a good and successful leader, because these kind of people much more dealing with their personality development, not the community development. They are probably the limited capability to talk the people, to communicate the people, and thinking strategically about the future of the community, much more thinking about his personal future. But of course, this is very much based on the personality.
Yeah. Our very last question is an interesting one. Is there such a thing like Hungarian style of leadership, according to your experiences?
This is for the Hungarian stance.
Hungarian side of leadership is the virtue. It's very important that the leader should be some kind of very sophisticated one, and probably the people, most of the people accepted those kind of guys and women who had some kind of bravery and much more committed to do that and not give up and fighting for those kind of goals. So I do not know that the other leaders also has a very strong commitment to be a leader. And if somebody would like to be a leader, I think it's you are able to see that, and that's one of the difference there.
I think it's very difficult to be a successful leader in a foreign environment. It's you can see it by multinational companies. Even if you move to London to a business hub and you are very successful and it's very difficult to become the part of this British elite, let's say, or to become, if you are in Berlin, that German elite or that US elite, if you are coming from outside, from a very different environment. And it's not because these people are mean and they don't let you in, but you're still a bit different. And there are these small rules, small things that are very difficult to understand for you as a foreigner. I lived several years in Germany, and even as a student, I often had the assumption that, look, now I'm working on one thing for 2 months now. If I would be in Hungary, I solve this problem within 1 week. But now I try to figure it out and I fail, and then I understand, okay, I failed because I did it this wrong or that wrong, or I had this wrong sentence in a situation, and so on and so on. If you are in your own context, if you are in your own environment, it's much likely that, but that by heart or by your emotions, you don't do these mistakes. And so is there a Hungarian style of leadership? For sure, but there is a German style of leadership, a French style of leadership, a US style of leadership. And to be part of these elites this is not about the big things and not about profit. This is about the small things, the small rules, the small smells that you have to understand to be successful.
So at the end of the day, it's better to come home and to become a local Hungarian leader, maybe.
I don't say, because it's not, the message was not basically this, but it's a fact that these things are existing. You can be very successful. Let's say there are successful Hungarians in the United States. Thomas Péterfi is one of the richest men in the world and highly successful and still also a Hungarian, but very successful. Or Luke Gladden, an American and very successful here in Hungary. So there are, but it's much more. I think it's much more difficult, and you have to give a much larger effort.
I think that's definitely right. I mean, as you said, there are lots of small rules that are difficult to understand and maybe in the end, at a certain level, impossible. At the same time, you know, as you said earlier, there are small tricks that you can learn as well. I mean, the only trick I learned in the United States from moving around a lot is that I would just claim to be from whatever state was most convenient in the conversation. So, and I was born in Missouri, and I grew up in Arkansas, and went to school in Massachusetts, and worked in New York. So whenever I meet someone from America, if they say they're from New York, I say, oh, I worked there. You know, if they say they're from Boston, oh, I went to school there. You know, or if it's someone from the South, oh, I'm from Arkansas, or oh, I'm from Texas. So, and maybe that works in an American environment, but you know, you can try to do a few things to be a chameleon and to blend in a little bit, and you can try to learn a few of those things, I think. So, and again, maybe it doesn't work all the way, but people who can do a little bit of that, I think, can succeed.
So my assumption is that you should come to Hungary and try to be successful in Hungary as a Hungarian or as a non-Hungarian, both.
Good. ladies and gentlemen, this was about sectoral and non-sectoral leadership talent. Our time is out now. So Zoltán Szalai, Gladen Papin, and István Stump. Thank you very much.
Okay, so our last speaker is also here. The last panel will be titled Homegrown or Off the Shelf? Where should leaders come from? How do business leaders view leadership training as a future investment? The panel will be moderated by Tamás Bernát, lecturer of Center for Business Studies at MCC.
The speakers of the panel are Dr. László Ludwig, CEO, Siemens Mobility. Veronika Spanarova, Managing Director and Country Officer, Citi Hungary. And Bálint Lévai, CEO, Biotech USA.
Okay, thank you very much. And let's start, let's get down to business, as it were. We heard in the previous panel that business is easy because you only have to look at numbers. And then we heard that business is hard because you only have to look at numbers. So my conclusion would be that this time I would like to make life easy for people from business, our three CEO guests. Essentially, the question that we would like to understand is what business wants from a business school. We are in a business school. Leadership Academy is a sort of business school. And there are highly successful people with highly successful companies behind them up here on the stage. And I would like to sort of make it easy for them in the sense that they can now write an order. What would they like to get from a leadership academy, from any business school, as it were? And for starters, I would have a question, a personal question. What sort of insight did you get from any training course or business school event or any sort of education outside your workplace that you still recall and you think was very useful for you? And I would like to ask Veronika to start. We are in Central Europe, so ladies first.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me here on the panel. I would start with saying I'm a big believer in continuous learning. So I really enjoyed the previous panel. I learned a lot about the leadership, and that's part of that. So I am originally from the Czech Republic. I graduated from the Charles University. I have a master's in economics, and I was seeking for the business courses already during my studies because I knew that I would like to do the applied economics, or which was business. There were not that many differences between the business school and the economics in the Czech Republic in the early 90s when I was at the university. Then I spent my last 28 years working for Citi. No, not doing the same job, doing the different things in different countries across the different roles. What I got from the university was really a very good start of my career. And it was a combination of a very good theoretical knowledge, the principles that I could start with, and also the application and the teamwork which I had, with the students, with the other students, and with the professors across. And then I believe that we may be talking about, how that can further be applied in the career. But it's an important start for the professional life.
Thank you very much. And Bálint, László, who would like to continue?
Yeah, I can.
Please.
So thank you very much for the question, and good afternoon to everybody. I got some years ago a very similar question at a training. What are the best books, best manager books which I have ever read? And that was similarly difficult because you have to pick then one or two, although you have read plenty of them which were very good. So at the end of the day, I gave an answer with a picture. I took a photo of my shelf, which is full with books, and then I said, this is what I like. and you have to build your own library. And this is a little bit similar with all these trainings and with the education, that you have to build a set of soft skills if you want to be a good leader. And to build these soft skills, usually you cannot do only at school. You have to work on that in your whole life, as you said, Monica. I totally agree with you. I remember some aha feelings. I'm originally an engineer, then I studied economics, and then I, of course, visited a lot of courses at Siemens or at other companies where I worked. And I had such aha feelings, for example, when I learned about the different personalities, how to understand other people, how to motivate them, how to convince them if they are your clients, how to read from body language or the micro-mimics, these type of things. And in fact, if I work together with my colleagues and if I organize a workshop or a training, I always aim at delivering such aha feelings which they remember, which really is something new for them. Without saying that, of course, we need a structured education with a good combination of practical and theoretical parts. This is also very, very important. And maybe one more remark to this question. You have to accept that management studies are not so exact like mathematics. So you have to be flexible, things are changing, there are new theories, and maybe something was true some years ago and it is not exactly like that. So if I, for example, look at what topics we are talking about in the management of Siemens nowadays about, and if I compare it with the topics which I saw when I was young at another company, completely different. So absolutely new topics popped up, and we have to keep flexibility.
Thank you. So we need structures, and on top we need aha experiences, which change from time to time. What was your experience, Bálint?
I have different experiences in different stages of my life. When I first went to business school, I finished university in Vienna, and at that time I can remember I just tried to pass exams, and it was really difficult, and I did everything to pass the exams, but after university I realized I learned so little compared to what there have been taught. And later on, after I started working and got some practical experience, I realized how much there was that could have applied to my everyday job, but I don't know. So I took my old books and looked for some formulas and general ideas. I couldn't use them exactly how I learned them, but there was appliances where they helped to find the general direction of thinking for myself and as well for the whole company. And right now I'm actually doing a school, so I enrolled an advanced management program. It's a 4-week education, 4 separate weeks, and I enjoy it a lot. Like, it's really eye-opening, even after 10 years of CEO experience, how much I don't know, how much theory can actually help moving the business forward. And it's not necessarily things which we didn't do before, but these are things like putting everything in a construct. And then you can pick things which are important for you or for your specific case. But after a lot of experience, practical experience, especially, it's really good to go back to school and challenge the level of your knowledge.
Great, thank you. I mean, that's the strongest proof, I guess, that you are actually going to such a school, that such schools may have a reason to exist. So, talking about time and changing times, it's a question how much you actually, as CEOs, take part in the process of hiring new people. But I'm sure that you do have an overall impression. And that's a question by itself. How much do you actually take part in the hiring process? And if you do, what's your impression about the changing of generations? To put it a bit provocatively, I would ask, does Generation Z exist at all? Or is it simply that the young are young, and that's it? What's your impression? Laszlo, for example.
Okay, then I take the first turn. So I will be provoking you or those who believe in Generation Z. I don't believe in this. I believe in young people, of course. I believe that youngs are different than olds, and probably this was already in the type of the Romans or the Greeks. So, and there are differences because age plays an important role, and you can differentiate people by age, and of course they have other features, I agree. On the other side, there are several other features which are very important and even more important. Things like cultural background, family background, the level of motivation, the level of energy what people have. And of course I conduct interviews. We hire each year 60 people. I don't interview all of them, but many of them. And my experience is that first you have to go down to the facts. You have to understand in an interview in a black and white manner if the candidate satisfies your needs, has the education, the level of communication, I mean knowledge of foreign languages and all these factual things. And then there is a second part where you have to get acquainted with him or her, and not based on stereotypes like Gen Z, but really build your own opinion. So if I look at, I checked in Wikipedia what is about Gen Z. First, I checked the literature.
It's about the facts, right?
You went far.
It's about the facts. Most of the literature is American. So that shows me that this is, maybe it is more usable in the United States than in my life here in Budapest. Secondly, I read that Gen Z is grown up with internet. I use internet at least as frequently as my 6 children, who are partly Gen Z, partly a little older. These people live more slowly, drink less alcohol, have less teenage pregnancies, etc. I don't know. I don't believe that there is such change, but I have never studied such statistics. I don't think that my children drink less or more than I did or my friends. I think it's more or less the same. More concerned with academic performance and job prospects. I don't know. I think they are, yes, that's true, but I was, and my friends were as well. So I would question many of these stereotypes. Probably my children inherited my approach to the academic education. I studied university, my wife as well. So this, maybe has a bigger influence than whether they are old or young or Z or X.
Thank you very much, Veronika.
Such a good answer. It's hard to add anything. Don't say sorry. That was great. So two parts of the question. So I do spend quite some time in recruitment. I would say in 2 parts. One, really sitting down with the team and looking at the recruitment strategy about the skills, about the attitudes, about the behaviors, and who do we need to hire, how we would like to conduct the interviews, so that also the candidates are feeling comfortable when we are talking to them on the first time. And I do quite a good share of the interviews, also myself, for the roles within the bank. And I have to say it's a very good learning process for me also, because I would hope that the candidates learn from me or from the people who are interviewing them. But it's also a very good learning for the interviewers to see how what is important for the job candidates and for the candidates of the roles. I would just say, let me try to challenge it a little bit. I think that Generation Z does exist, but I really like the definitions, and I agree that sometimes it's a stereotype. It shouldn't be overrated. How I look at it is that when I interview somebody who is, let's say, 25 years old, applying for the job, or let's say 23, that's where I was 23 when I was applying for the job, and if I interview somebody who is 23 today, the interview and the questions are different. So I would say that there is a difference. And also we just did, with the company, we did a course at the school, which was, which was a case study of what the current students think about the financial sector and about the banking sector. And they were some really good eye-opening points and questions, which I would say that they are different than they have been when I was their age.
Can I ask for an example?
Pardon?
An example where these differences came through?
I will give you an example. I need to think about it a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Then Bálint last, at least. I'll give you the next question first.
Yes, that's what I was
So I do believe there are generational differences because every generation has different challenges to tackle, both in the younger period of their lives and also in the professional life. So I think the real question is the company set up in a way where a Generation Z can find itself? Because this is what we are talking about, that they are not hardworking enough, they don't have their goals, their life goals, and it's difficult to put them into a company environment. But at this point, and I'm almost Generation Z, so...
So you exist.
Yeah, well, is the company set up to accommodate all different type of people? So is it set up to accommodate gender differences? Is it set up to accommodate religious differences or ethnic differences? Or and we have found that the best way to measure new applicant success, or to foresee, is if we see potential for performance. And if we see potential for performance in an applicant, then no matter their background or their current state of mind or whatever, they might be able to come into our company culture and maybe alter the way of their thinking, or maybe alter the way of the company's thinking. And if we keep an open mind to all different people, then we can implement it very well into a nice whole.
Thank you. Seems an open mind is a very important asset.
I have my example here.
Thank you.
So the example that I would like to point out is that I think that people today, at the beginning of their career, they have gathered much more experience than, for example, I have when I was studying, because of the opportunities. So when I was starting, it was like I was really starting to work, my first or second kind of a professional job. Today, the opportunities are bigger in terms of the summer internship, part-time work already during the studies. So that kind of defines the difference at the starting point when a young person is ready to start working full-time.
Clear. Thank you very much. In the meantime, let me remind the kind audience that you can ask questions, which would come up on the screen, so I can then ask them just like at the end of the previous panel they were asked. Until then, third question from myself. Do you see any traits, differences, signs for business school background in your colleagues, people that you have hired or people that you actually are interviewing? Is there a difference between someone who has not gone to a business school and between someone who has done it? What is your experience? And Bálint, the floor is yours this time, for the first time.
Well, I'm not really interviewing people anymore. Luckily, I have my long-term colleagues with whom I work together, and they are interviewing most of our new colleagues. Sometimes when it's a really high-profile position, then I appear. Generally, I think we see a difference in the mindset, analytical thinking, and maybe also motivation in career, how somebody from a business school tries to move ahead, tries to take leadership position, as opposed to others who studied a very specific domain of life, and they try to be specialized in like to implement in the company both type of thinking, because trying to get ahead in life helps the company to get ahead in life. So putting together a lot of people who want to solve a specific topic and are really eager to solve it from different points of view, from specific things, from general business point of view, that's always a good option.
Thank you.
I would say yes, to a large extent, and that goes to what Laszlo was, you were speaking about, the kind of a technical background and the technical knowledge. So people from the business school, and I come from the financial institution, from the bank. So people with the business school, or students or the applicants with the business school, they do have the background, which is a good start, good head start for the role. At the same time, it's not the only factor. This is the what. And we also have what and how in every role. So the what is the background, is the knowledge which has been gathered, and the how is are the skills and are the behaviors which are very universal and don't depend on the type of the school. And also, I would just like to also say that from the financial industry, there are just so many different roles. There are some which are purely focused on, for the business school graduates to be better equipped for. There are other roles who are very quantitative and require a different type of education.
Thank you.
So now I am the last one, and after Veronika and Bálint, I have not so much to say. So let me address a very specific part of this topic. When I was young, when I started working at the beginning of the 90s, we had a completely different situation. After having the political changes, companies were looking for young people who have an open mind, which can be filled with information and with attitudes and with behavior as they want. It was very important to have language knowledge, English or German, but to be honest, nobody cared whether you studied business or engineering or whatever. Nowadays, I think we have a completely different setup. Nowadays, it's again good or important to go to work based or related to your studies. So if you studied engineering, start on the technical field. If you studied languages, don't go to be a manager immediately, but start to do something as a teacher or something like that. So what I wanted to say, my first reaction to your question is that nowadays, if I want an engineer, of course, I will look at engineers, and I will not interview businessmen, and vice versa. And the advantage of having completed a business school is probably that your students get an overall picture, a much better overview. They are much better in strategic kind of thinking. So at my company, if I would look for somebody for a management position or for a business development position or marketing, strategic marketing, probably I would go for a business school. While if I look for a production manager, of course, I will pick somebody from a technical school.
So it depends on the role as well.
But I think we probably all agree that it's more important is the professional experience after the school. So if they have a specific position of strategic thinking or strategic position, you would probably also consider somebody with a technical background, maybe even more so.
Absolutely. And everything I said goes without saying that you must be prepared for changes in your career. And even you started as an engineer, you must be able to become a CEO just like I did, or maybe vice versa.
Okay, so the best school is life. However, since we do have business schools, and actually, thank you for the questions, they are flooding in, and one of those, or actually several of those, are aiming at the same thing that I would like to ask from you now, which is basically, once again, an easy role. You can give advice. The idea is, what advice would you give to business schools? What should they teach more, or what should they teach better? What would be a good change to their usual curriculum? And I think Veronika should be the first at this time.
I would just point out a couple of things. I wouldn't say, dare to say, change or do better, because we see a very good students coming in, applying for the work very well prepared. So, I have a comparison over several countries, and the students and the graduates from the universities here are very well prepared. So, what I would suggest as important things are try to be practical as much as possible. We as the companies are ready to help and to contribute, because we have, I'm sure that my colleagues here also, you have a cooperation with the universities, teaching the courses, providing, expertise, and many of our colleagues actually enjoy to provide a lecture to the university in their area of expertise. And also, we do have opportunities for the internship and part-time jobs for the students who are within their final years of the university. So that's the type of the cooperation with universities that we like, that we believe is beneficial to the universities. It's very valuable for the students, and it's very valuable for us as a companies.
Thank you. And thank you for the feedback. That sounded very good. Thanks. Laszlo?
It's difficult to give a general advice because it's your profession and you know it probably much better than we do it in the industry, for example, where I am. But maybe the most important message is that if you want to become a leader, if you want to become a manager, this is not a question of some years long study. It's a lifelong working, learning, and improving yourself. And that's what your students should be explained well, and they should be prepared for, that they should educate themselves, read and evaluate experiences, discuss challenges with other peers, and accept that this is not an exact closed science, but something, it's rather a kind of a way of living.
Thank you. So be ready to change is essentially one of the...
And learn.
Key, and learn. Thank you. Bálint?
I very much agree with both of you. And maybe on top of that, the key thing what I can remember back from my student years is it would be so great to be motivated to learn. To be inspired in those years, because it's a really good year, really good times. But sometimes it was for me very difficult to be motivated in school. So no matter what, but on topic and motivated, and that helps. I was in university in Austria, but I studied also in the US. There was a huge difference between the two in terms of, in Austria it was more like a multiple choice type of education, where I never really had a personal connection to a professor or something. Like maybe I had like 3 or 4 of those during my whole university studies, as opposed to the US system, where you are challenged regularly, even monthly, weekly, in a regular basis. And I tended to learn more when I was regularly challenged with more core topics and less into details and less into how can we put more information into their heads, as opposed to how can we keep them interested and focused on core things and core ideas.
Clear. Thank you. Thank you very much. As I said, the questions are coming in, and there is one which is, well, sort of repeated in several ways, but there is the clearest and shortest way of asking it, and I will read that one out. And before you answer, it depends. Please think about if it depends on what. So the question is, do you hire for knowledge or attitude?
We can't say it depends. Can I say both? Because this is true.
Both. Meaning? No, but please elaborate.
So there are the roles when which needs to have it. I'm not saying it depends. There is a certain background or a certain knowledge set which is required for every role. Mm-hmm. So this is a precondition for a job, and it differs profession by profession. It differs in our case if we hire a banker, if we hire a financial analyst, if we hire a risk manager, or if we hire a person, a technology developer. So there is a certain knowledge, and then attitude is very important. So this is the what and how that I was describing a couple of minutes ago.
Clear. So both. Bálint?
We hire for performance. So we try to see current performance and future performance into people. And if they have potential, but not necessarily the credentials, then we will probably hire them. Because the first half a year, 1 year, depending on the position, people don't really produce. They try to assimilate in the company, find their way. Of course, we try to make them perform as fast as possible. But generally, we see that it comes after they know the company, after they exactly know what they have to do, and you cannot learn it out of the job.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
If you ask me, I hire for attitude. There is a pre-selection in the selection process, and usually people I meet are already at a level of knowledge which I do not have to question. So if I hire an IT specialist, somebody already checked whether the candidate has the basic abilities, etc. Secondly, the knowledge can be improved. We are thinking in people not in some months, but rather years or decades, typically. At my company, so knowledge can be improved, attitude can be changed not so easily, and attitude, it's a general word, in my eyes includes personality, integrity, motivation, energy level, etc. So it's a very complex question. So when I join a recruitment process, my role is 80% to check really that and not the knowledge.
Thank you very much. Which actually brings me to another question. In the previous panel, there was a lot of talk about sectoral differences, whether it matters if it's non-profit or for-profit. Now, you all are from very for-profit organizations, I would say. However, you are from very different sectors and very different sort of organizations. In recruiting new people, how do you feel, in what sense do you feel special? So what makes your position special, that you are from Siemens Mobility, you are from Citi, you are from Biotech USA? How does this reflect in your everyday experience in hiring new people? Whoever can start.
I start with an idea, and maybe we can make the picture more complex, but for me, it's always a challenge. On my field, I deal with public transportation, with mobility, that projects are long-lasting, and even I remember, for example, Metro 4, I started with this project when I left the university at my first working place, and we handed over the project just some years ago in Budapest, and it is maybe still in guarantee phase. I don't know by heart, but I can imagine. So what I wanted to say, we need people who are prepared for a marathon run. And if we talk about, for example, Gen Z people who do not exist, as I said, they are very much interested in quick wins and achieving success in a very short term. So I think our most special feature is this long thinking.
Long-term thinking. Thank you very much.
I would say for us it's globality and diversity, because we are present in almost 100 countries around the world. Here in Budapest we have 3,000 people from more than 50 different countries.
Wow.
So what we find ourselves as attractive, or when we ask people who are applying for the roles with us, these are people who are interested to work in the international atmosphere. Talking with the people all around the world, supporting the clients and the colleagues who are here in Hungary, but also in it could be in a different time zone, different geography, and this is one differentiating factor that I believe we have.
Thank you very much. Bálint?
In our case, it's definitely our international success. If you want to work for a brand born in Hungary with this level of internationalization, we are probably the only choice currently.
That makes you, yeah, that puts you in a nice position, isn't it? Okay. And do people know that actually? Bálint, do people know that? So, I mean, do you have to explain to them that, guys, we are the only choice, or is this something that is known about you?
If somebody is looking for working for a brand, they definitely know, make the research, and they know. So we have little difficulties of hiring people, to be honest. We have a lot of applicants all the time, and it's sometimes difficult to choose. Still, the right fit, to find the right fit, that's always a challenge.
Thank you very much. Another thing that came up in the previous panel, and Veronika, if you don't mind, I would ask you, because they had the issue of asking male colleagues about female leadership, and I don't want to spare you the question. Is there really, from your practical point of view, any difference between female or a male leader? Is this something that we should deal with, or is this something that, you know, books deal with but life doesn't?
So I would answer it in the following way, that everybody has a different style of the leadership. What is important is the diversity, of the point of view, of the background, of the way of the thinking. It doesn't really matter whether it comes from a man or from a woman, but what is important is that that we have enough different points of views when we are discussing important things, when we are sitting around the table. If that comes from the women leadership purely, I wouldn't think so. I mean, women may have a different style, but let's not stereotype it.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for asking a question from another panel, which is always a bonus.
I was actually listening very carefully to that, so I learned a lot.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, coming to our last question, we have very different types and points of view in the audience as well, but still generalizing a little bit, since we are in a leadership academy. If we think of the typical audience member as someone looking ahead on their career, starting their career, what is the piece of advice that you would give them? What is the piece of sort of idea where to start, how to start their career, when to look for a leadership position? Is this actually something that they should, you know, break their necks about to be leaders, or is it also okay to be good employees? What do you think about, what kind of advice would you give to our audience members? And let's start with Laszlo this time.
Okay, so my first advice is that you should have a professional humility, a kind of humbleness. I was not that when I left the university. I remember how I criticized the older colleagues, and then when I became old, I understood that they had good reasons to be like that, and maybe I was a little bit too critical. So this is one of my first advices, that of course you must have a healthy self-esteem, but you shouldn't be a big head. And then you will get much more support from your colleagues than otherwise. The second question is be empathic. That's what I learned. I said I'm an engineer and I'm really that type, so empathy is not my strength. This is my experience, that you have to listen to others and accept that they have other motivations, other feelings, other ideas than you. And maybe there is a third topic, which is a very old advice, that learn yourself, understand your strengths, make it more stronger if you can, but you should also understand where you have your blind spots, and either try to improve it somehow and focus more on that, or get help from colleagues. That's what I usually do. For example, we talk a lot about recruitment. In recruitment processes, of course, HR is deeply involved, and since I feel that I need some help in this empathic field, I always appreciate very much the remarks of my colleague there. She is typically a lady, so I don't want to make this categorization, but probably ladies are a little bit better on statistical basis in empathy than men engineers or mathematicians or people like that. So these blind spots, handling blind spots is as much so important as having the strengths, because at the end you have to be able to cover everything relatively well.
Clear, clear. Thank you very, very much. Veronika?
So I would say three things, which in my view is important: to be motivated. So taking the first job or any role, because not only because of the compensation, because of the financials, but also because this is the job which I like to do, which I believe I will enjoy doing, and it has a potential for me to learn something. Be enthusiastic, because the high level of energy, we were speaking about it here, high level of energy, teamwork, motivation, it goes a long way. And the third point is be curious. Just don't stop asking the questions, because this is the continuous learning which will bring further experience, which will help progress in the career.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And last but not least, Bálint, what's your advice?
Well, a lot of important things were mentioned, and probably the most important things. Maybe I'll build upon Veronika's point of developing yourself. It's very important to take on new challenges in your workplace, and through that develop yourself and realize what you're good at, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and bring your weaknesses to an acceptable level, and build furthermore on your strength and the things what you really like to do. There will be a lot of things which you don't like to do, but you have to do it. So that's not a surprise. But stay on your track, and if you put in your work and you surround yourself with a good company or good people, then you will probably succeed.
We hope you will. So, Veronika, László, Bálint, thank you very, very much for this discussion. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.